Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the fortune to be with Nicky Billou, aka the Millionaire Maker, the #1 international best-selling author of 8 books, including Finish Line Thinking, The Thought Leader's Journey, The Power of Connecting, How to Create $1 Million a Year Income. He's read over 4,000 books, and he is the host of the #1 podcast in the world for thought leadership, The Thought Leader Revolution, featuring guests like Dr. Ken Blanchard, John Maxwell, Jack Canfield, and even me. Nicky, thanks so much for joining us.
Seth, brother, thanks for having me on the show, man.
Our pleasure. So let's go back in time a little bit. I know you weren't always an international best-selling author and thought leader. How did you get started?
That's a great question. So I'm actually originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old, the Islamic Revolution happened in Iran. And my late father, God rest his soul, he could see the writing on the wall that this was not going to be a great place to raise his Christian family. So what he did was he made a plan. He got us out of Iran and eventually settled us where I live now in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I thank God every day for my dad and his foresight, Seth, because he took us out of tyranny and brought us to freedom. And my dad, really instilled in me the value of freedom. That's my #1 value: freedom, free expression, free enterprise. And we live in a time right now where things are chaotic in the world, right? The last few years with lockdowns and wars in Europe, a lot of people have been feeling and getting a sense that freedom is under attack all over the world. And for me, it's been an honor to be one of the folks who stood up for freedom through my podcast, which is normally a business podcast, through the work that I do with people who believe in freedom, through writing a best-selling political book, actually, which I don't mention on my bio, but I wrote this with the 2008 Libertarian candidate for vice president. His name's Wayne Allen Root.
I know Wayne.
Wayne's a good friend of mine, and we're writing our second book right now. That's the book that sold the most out of any of the books I wrote because of Wayne's name,
sure,
not because of me. And we're doing a second book together right now. That's a list of companies that are, behaving in an anti-freedom way that we recommend people don't do business with. And now our next book is the list of companies that we recommend people do business with. And we believe that book is going to do incredibly well. But freedom's very important. And I think people in the West need to value their freedoms. People who are born here don't necessarily understand how precious we really have it here, how wonderful it is, how special it is to get to live in this society. And there's people out there that are crazy and they say things like America is so oppressive and racist and sexist. And I go, dude, you ever been to Iran? Because if you opened your mouth like that, they'd hang you from a crane until you slowly suffocated over a 10-minute period. It's an excruciating, agonizing way to die, And a young woman was just killed because she went outside with her hair partially uncovered. So that to me is very important. And without freedom of expression, you cannot have free enterprise that lasts. And it's very important that we preserve that, because without free enterprise, we can't make money. We can't serve our families to help all the people we're looking to serve.
Amen to all that. So how'd you get into doing what you're doing now?
So that started me off. My dad was an entrepreneur and a champion for freedom. And he led by example, and I followed his example. He was the kind of man who uplifted people, right? And what he did was, if you were looking for work and he knew you, he'd help you find a job. If you were looking to start a business and he knew you, he'd help you start that business. If you worked for him and you were trying to buy a car or a house or an apartment and you didn't have enough money, he'd find a way to help you make all that happen. And people that knew him today, he's been dead for a few years, still come to me and say, wow, your dad's the greatest man I ever knew. And he used to always say this, Seth, and everyone listening should write this down. Life and business are about people, not about numbers and money. And if you really want to be successful, truly successful and blessed by God Almighty, focus on helping people, not on the numbers or the money. And Dad would always say to me, son, you got to remember that person sitting across from you, that's someone's husband, that's someone's father, that's someone's son, that's someone's wife, that's someone's mother, that's someone's sister. That's someone who's got big dreams. That's someone who has people who count on them, people who love them. That's someone who's maybe even been disappointed by life, or even someone like you who made a lot of big promises to them and didn't deliver. So you got to always focus on helping that human being and loving on that human being. And,
absolutely. I get all that. How did the Thought Leader Revolution show get started?
well, brother, all of this is important to all of that getting done, right? Like my dad having me be this kind of man was a kind of man that had me want to go into entrepreneurship. And I was all about serving entrepreneurs through the work that I did. And I saw that there was a lot of good people in the business of entrepreneurship who were experts at what they did. You know what I mean? Real experts, but nobody knew who the heck they were. Nobody understood how great they were because they sucked at marketing themselves, and sucked is a technical term, right? What I decided to do, working with some incredible people, was start a podcast and start a program where we would show good people who were experts transition from being an expert to a thought leader, because an expert's someone who knows something, but a thought leader is someone who's known for knowing something. And through my podcast, I went from being an expert, an unknown expert, to being a well-known, well-regarded thought leader, right? Because I got to interview some incredible people like yourself, like John Maxwell, like Seth Godin, the two Seths were on my show, right? People would go, you know those people, they talk to you? Yeah. So it made them more open to wanting to have a conversation with me and end up doing business with me. That's how come I got to sign up, millions of dollars worth of business with people, is because I positioned myself as a thought leader and I started teaching people how to do it through writing books, through doing podcasts, through creating IP around their messaging that other people would understand and be able to take it out there into the world.
Well, let's dive into that just a little bit. So what does the business do? Who's an ideal client for you? And then what are some of the ways that you serve them? Because you're adding an immense amount of value. So
my ideal clients are primarily folks that are doing under 300 grand a year as a coach, as a consultant, as a corporate trainer, as a service-driven entrepreneur who really wants to break into that first $1 million a year of their business. You know what I mean? And usually they are really good at what they do. So they're experts, but they're not known. They're not, the market doesn't understand who they are. And they also are scared to sell. They are, they don't want to be seen as pushy or salesy or any of that stuff. They put all the attention on themselves because they're worried, am I going to look bad? Are people going to think I reek of commission breath? And one of the things that we help those folks do is reframe selling to serving, because no one wants to be sold, but everybody wants to be served by a good, caring human being. And a lot of these folks, as long as they learn how to take the attention off themselves, they'll go to that next level. And I teach these folks that you got to remember, business is about solving problems for people for profit. PPP. Nicky Billou's patented 3P 7-figure success system is solve acute problems for amazing people and an awesome profit.
I love it. Now, what you talked about something that sounded contrarian that I'd like you to expand on more. You said you're helping these experts turn into thought leaders by taking the focus off of themselves. What does that mean? Because normally people would think you want this, you want more of the spotlight, and you're talking about putting the focus someplace else. Can you expand on that?
The reason most businesses fail is because they say things, when you ask them what they do, they'll say, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm a realtor, I'm a whatever. And you ask them, well, tell me about what you do. They go, well, we're the best, we're the biggest, we've been in business the longest. Oh my God, that's what a recipe to get people's eyes to glaze over and just tune you out, right? That's all about you. Nobody wants to hear about you. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. What they want to know is not who you are and what you do, but how you help people like them. So rather than saying, we're the best, we're the biggest, we've been in business the longest. If someone asks you what you do, you should say something like, I help coaches and consultants add 1 to 2 zeros to their annual income while working 10 to 20 hours less a week. That's about the people you help. And then if someone hears that and they're in the group of people you help, they're going to go, how do you do that? And they're going to go, tell me more. Instead of, that's nice, thanks, good to meet you, bye-bye. You know, that's one other person I'm never going to have to think about again. That's the bottom line. And I had a fellow that I'll tell you a quick story. He was a young man who was a personal fitness trainer, fitness coach, right? Called himself a fitness coach. When I met him, he was 25 years old, nice guy, just one of these guys, Seth, that you would root for in life. You just wanted to see him succeed, but he was a horrible businessman, just horrible. He had 7 clients. He made $1,200 a month when I first met him, living in Toronto, the Manhattan of Canada. Okay, so think about that. $1,200, not really great. So his name was Dan. And when I met him, I go, so Danny, tell me about what you do. Well, I'm a fitness trainer and I can help people and I help anybody. And I'm like, what? Like, no, I help anybody. They can lose weight, they can add muscle, they can go to contests. And I'm like, no, man, you need to narrow that focus. And he says, no, but I can help anybody. And I'm like, anybody the Walt and the Pulse? And he's like, laughs. He goes, that's funny, I guess so. I'm like, no, you got to narrow your focus. So he goes, all right, let me think about this. And then he came back to me a little while later. He goes, I think I want to work with doctors. My dad's a doctor. I love my dad. And doctors make a lot of money. And I'm like, Danny, that can't be your message. I love my dad and doctors make a lot of money. No, I'm doing this. So he did it. It didn't work. Danny, we need to change this. It's not working. Okay. He goes, all right, you know what? I'll narrow some more. Cardiologists, they make more money than doctors. I'm like, oh my God, this kid's not getting it. And I go, no. He goes, no, I'm doing it. It didn't work. And then through serendipity, the good Lord sent Danny a Paralympian, fellow who had a missing leg since childhood. These two, they hit it off. They did great work together. And in fact, this fellow got ready for a contest and won some medals. So really, really great result. Danny comes to me and goes, oh my God, I think I get it. I go, you get it? Okay, tell me. He said, I've been focusing on the money, haven't I? I go, yeah, you have. I should have been focusing on helping people. Yeah, you should have. He said, Nicky, I think I want to help people with missing limbs. I know how to help them. I know how to get them to work out and get them fit. This will really make a difference for a lot of them. I'm going to do that. And I said, Danny, that's a great idea. Go for it. So Seth, he did. Keep in mind, he was a one-on-one fitness trainer, okay? He signed up 400 clients in 6 weeks. Such a flood of business came into him. He added not 1 zero, but 2 zeros to his income. And he had to completely shift his model around because he came to me in all in a panic. I can't train 400 people. I go, yeah, you're right. We got to figure something else out. And we did, and group programs and all that jazz. But why was he successful? First of all, he wasn't like, I'm a trainer. He was like, I help people with missing limbs regain confidence in themselves and build their bodies back up. Now that, my friend, is a differentiated message. So he added not a zero, but 2 zeros to his monthly income. He went from 1,200 to over 100,000 a month in 6 weeks. That's crazy. But that's the power of nailing your message and having a differentiated focus on your client and not yourself. Not, we're the biggest, we're the best, we've been around the longest, but we help amazing human beings like you solve this unbelievably horrible problem.
I love it. That is a great case study and a great example. What inspired you to start writing the books?
Well, that's a great question. So, I've always loved writing and reading. I'm really enjoying reading. I read over 100 books a year, have for the longest time. And when I was a kid, it was my dream to write a published book. And then I had a client of mine who'd written some books and told me that you can get your book published now. You don't have to go and wait for some publisher to offer you a deal. And so I said, really? And he showed me how to do it. And then the next thing he told me was, this book can brand you and can make you a lot of money. And I said, really? Tell me more about that. So the first book I wrote was called Finish Line Thinking, How to Think and Win Like a Champion. I have worked with a couple of Olympic gold medalists for several years. Like I was business partners with them. And what I noticed about them is these guys didn't think like you and me, they thought and expected victory at everything they did. And they really went at it super, super hard. And I studied how they thought. And I thought, I want to apply some of this to how I think. And I did. And it made a big difference for me. So I decided this was going to be my first book. I went and I codified 13 principles of how to think and win like a champion. I put together a questionnaire in the book that you could, self-assess your thinking style. And it was the basis of a coaching program I launched called the Finish Line Thinking Success Program, which ended up earning me $3.5 million in coaching revenue. So it was amazing.
That is absolutely incredible. And obviously you've written at least 7 more since then, with more on the way. For folks who want to learn more about you and the amazing work that you're doing, where is the best place for them to go?
eCircleacademy.com is my main website. I have several websites. There's a whole lot of resources there, and there's also a opportunity to jump on what I call a success call. So they can go to that website or just go to eCircleacademy.com/appointment and fill out the information there, pick a time, and away we go.
All right. And I mean, you've helped so many people do so many amazing things in the world. What's your biggest challenge now?
At the moment, I'm trying to figure out how to do 2 things really, really well. And one of them I got from you, and that was use a podcast to get people on my show that are potential clients for me, because I do a good job of that as a guest on other people's podcasts. So that's something I'm going to be giving a lot of thought to. I got your book, which you graciously sent me. So I'm going to be spending some time going through that book over the next couple of weeks. And secondly, I want to build an online sales funnel so that I can automate the process of paid traffic bringing me leads. So having multiple ways to bring leads comes in is good. So those are the 2 things that are kind of on my mind at the moment that I haven't fully figured out yet.
That's awesome. Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
I love seeing a good human being who's been failing win. And if we have time for one last story, I'd like to give you my closeout story.
Sure.
Several years ago, a woman was introduced to us who had been the country director for Canada for one of the world's largest and oldest personal development firms. She was really good at what she did, but she felt she needed some help to help her grow the company. And she brought a man on who she thought was very talented to help her do this. Kind of like Steve Jobs back in the day with John Scully, right? And just like Steve and John, at first, everything was great. But after a while, their visions diverged and the board sided with him and not her. And just like Steve, she was out of her own company. And she was, how do you get kicked out of your own company? But it does happen. So she was bereft and lost for a while. And she came to us, and my lady and I, we worked together. We really thought this was an amazing human being. We loved on her. We poured our heart into her. And we showed her how to narrow her niche, go after her ideal client. And because of her position, she had a massive list of people that were potential clients for what she did, right? Like about 4,000 she could go to. So she really didn't have a need to go and get cold traffic. She could just call people that already knew who she was. In her first month as a coach in this space, she did 10,000 in profit. In her second month, she did 12,000. In her third month, she did 18,000. In her fourth month, she did $62,200. She was crushing it. And she lives in Ottawa. I live in Toronto. That's a 5-hour drive. And I have a son who plays soccer, and he had a tournament in Ottawa. And I called her up and I said, hey, you got a son my boy's age. How'd you guys like to come and watch the tournament? And, maybe we can grab some lunch after. So she said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we all did that. Everybody had a great time. My son's team won the tournament, and we all went our separate ways. A few weeks later, we had in Toronto one of our live branded thought leader immersion workshops. This is where we teach people how to be seen as that go-to thought leader and all that great stuff. And she was a member of our ongoing year-long mastermind. And kind of the entree into all that is that 3-day workshop. And we had 8 people who registered for that, and plus our members. And so we were at the portion where I talk about how people can sign up and work with us ongoingly. The upsell, or as I like to call it, the upserve portion. And the way I do it is I ask our people to share their experience. It's a lot more powerful and effective than me saying bye, right? So I said, who'd like to share? And Seth, before I could pick anybody, she jumps on stage, like leaps, practically bowls me over. I go, whoa, it's like me. I'm like, okay, floor is yours. As soon as she gets up there, she looks around and she starts to cry. And I mean, bawl. She's crying, tears, snot. We have to give her tissues. And like any man faced with a crying woman, my first thought was, what did I do wrong? Why is she crying, right? And so, but I kept a cool exterior. And then she turns, and between her tears, she looks at me and she goes, Nicky, you did not know this, but when you and your little son came to visit me and my little son said, Mommy, who are we going to go meet? Our little boys get. And he said, oh, sweetheart, we're going to go meet Nicky Billou and his son. And she said, all of a sudden, my boy got really quiet, really serious, and said to me, oh, Mommy, are we going to go get to meet the man who saved our family?
Wow.
And Seth, I'm old school. I don't cry in public. You know what I'm talking about? I cried. We hugged. And then while we're hugging, she goes, I didn't tell you this, but when I came to see you, the bank was about to foreclose on our home. We hadn't paid the mortgage in months. My husband and I were fighting like cats and dogs in front of our 3 little kids, and it looked like we were going to break up. Kids were freaking out, and I thought I was going to lose my precious family. Literally, you helped us save our family because this took the pressure off of us. And you could hear a pin drop in the room because I had no idea. And 2 things came from this. One is we handed out the registration forms, and normally some people sign up, some people don't. Some people need a little bit of friendly persuasion. Everyone signed up immediately. That little boy was the best salesman I've ever had. like, and Seth, at the time, this was over 40 grand per person, right? So, you know what I mean? That's a big deal to just sign up right away. And the other thing that hit me was that, I think God sent this woman as an angel to me, as an angel to open my heart and to show me that I can do my best work when I'm working to help people that are fighting for something that really matters to them. And I just pray to God every morning. I said, God, please send me someone like this lady. Her name was Julie. Please send me another Julie. Please send me another Julie. I thank you for trusting me with helping this young woman.
Well, that is absolutely incredible. And I know you got shoe boxes full of stories like that. We greatly appreciate your time. We know it's incredibly valuable. This has been Seth Greene with Nicky Billou of the eCircle Academy. Make sure you check out eCircleacademy.com and all the books. Nicky, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for your time, Seth. God bless your heart.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We'll talk to you or see you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.